And then I hit a point in 2019 where I read a report that said 1 in 4 game players are exposed to white supremacist ideology online. And I read that and I literally stopped in my tracks and I was like, 1 in 4? Like 1 in 4? That seems so high. And that was the end of it. And then I pivoted and started doing trust and safety work.
I'm Cassie Coquero, Head of Communications at Thorn.
And I'm Paylez Halai, Senior Manager of Partnerships at Thorn, and this is Safe Space. Welcome to Season 3 of Safe Space. This is our first episode of the season, and it's going to be a good one. It's also the very first episode we're recording with my colleague Cassie as a co-host. Welcome, Cassie.
Thank you. I'm so excited about this. I'm really happy to be here doing this with you, and I'm so looking forward to getting to know some of these trust and safety powerhouses we have scheduled for this season. Before we bring in today's guest, we should talk about video games for a second, because today's episode dives right into that world. So Paylez, I'll ask you, what is your relationship with video games? Are you a gamer? Were you a gamer growing up or now?
Yeah, I played some video games growing up. I really liked playing some online kind of real-time strategy games, like Command and Conquer. I don't get as much time to play right now, but, games are everywhere on your mobile phones. Wherever you look, someone's playing a game.
It's so true. They're all over. I was not a gamer growing up, but my brother was a big gamer and I was constantly wanting his attention. And I remember getting in a fight with him one time and I pulled the plug on his Sonic the Hedgehog game before he saved it. He was at the last boss. And I think, honestly, it's like, 30 years later, I don't think he's forgiven me for that still. So
terrible. You really can't be doing that. And the fact that you remember tells me it was burned into your relationship with your brother.
Totally. And now I'm admitting it to the world here. So maybe this is the first step toward healing. But anyway.
Today's guest has spent her career studying what happens inside these gaming spaces. So not just the fun parts that we're talking about, but the really tricky parts of safety in gaming.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Rachel Kowert is our guest today. She's a research psychologist who has truly become one of the most prominent voices connecting gaming, mental health, and trust and safety. She recently won the Games for Change Vanguard Award and is doing some really groundbreaking work on the ROI of trust and safety investment right now. So we're going to talk to her about that. She's also going to tell us a little bit about a first-of-its-kind certification program that she's built for the volunteer leaders running digital communities. So these are the moderators, the community managers, groups of people who rarely get any formal training, and it's also completely free, which is cool. So I'm excited to ask her about that.
Yeah. Trust and safety within gaming is really its own beast. So I know we're both excited to dig into that with her and learn more about it. So why don't we welcome her on?
Yeah, welcome, Rachel. We're so happy to have you here.
Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to the non-gamers.
Yes, we're going to need some tips from you, but we'll get there. So to start, we like to ask our guests the same question to start, what they wanted to be when they grew up. So if you could tell us a little bit about little Rachel, what did you think you'd be doing as an adult?
I wanted to be a teacher. I spent a lot of time teaching my stuffed animals. I feel like many people have that story, like my chalkboard and, my chalk and my stuffed animals. And I think in some sense, I did get there, just maybe in a non-traditional way.
That's so sweet, teaching your stuffed animals. Okay, so that's very far from the trust and safety world, the gaming world. So let's start with this. How did you actually get into this work? When did you realize that protecting online users generally was something that you wanted to do?
It was a windy path. It was definitely not my first go at a career was not in that direction. I went to school to become a therapist. And literally on day one was like, ooh, maybe not. Maybe this is not the role for me. A lot of emotional labor that I think I wasn't fully prepared for. But I did the degree. And in doing that degree, I learned there was a lot of questions about the uses and effects of games. And there was no research on the topic. So I pivoted my career to a research-based one and spent the first 6 or 7 years really pushing against this idea that games are isolating and everyone who plays games is lonely and those kind of ideas, because I was a gamer myself and I was like, that's not what I see. So let's see what the research says. And then I hit a point in 2019 where I read a report that said 1 in 4 game players are exposed to white supremacist ideology online. And I read that and I literally stopped in my tracks and I was like, 1 in 4? Like 1 in 4? That seems so high. And that was the end of it. And then I pivoted and started doing trust and safety work.
Wow, that's amazing. And yeah, I've heard you talk in the past too about kind of some of the misperceptions about gaming and misperceptions, whether that's on behalf of parents or communities in general. So it's really cool that you're not only studying it, but really making a difference in changing the discourse around gaming, or at least as I see it. Is that a goal of yours too?
Oh, for sure. You know, if you look at the research, we've been studying games for 50 years more than, and overwhelmingly the effects are more positive than negative, but that's not what you would know if you just read the headlines and didn't really deep dive in it. So it is a big goal of mine to change the perception of what games are and what they're not.
You've mentioned before that what works in social media doesn't always work in gaming. I'm really curious about that. Can you tell us a little bit about a moment you realized that gaming, trust, and safety needed a different approach than what we were looking at for social media platforms or other platforms like that?
I really appreciate you bringing up this question because I think it is so incredibly relevant to still the conversations we're having today around regulation. Social media is a platform primarily for the interaction of two users. Games are not. Games are primarily spaces for fun and play. Like that is the primary goal in which people are going into that space. So with that in mind, you can't approach it with the same constrictive approaches that you would in social media, because if you totally constrict the social aspect, you're totally also constricting all the great parts about it. Like in the research, we talk about games and learning, for instance, and one of the best features is that a child can lead an adult. An 18-year-old can be super empowered to lead a group of 40-year-olds to victory. And that is an incredible moment to have a reversal of roles. Is it also potentially a vector for harm? Sure. But if you take it out totally and completely without any nuance in that conversation, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's what I want to say.
I love that metaphor. I never get to use it. I'm kind of jealous you just got to use it.
Sorry.
So you've worn a lot of hats. You've been a researcher, a content creator, an advisor. How has moving between all of these roles that you've played in this space sort of shaped how you thought about how you've thought about the work?
It's shaped it a lot. I think that there's a real advantage in having had multiple viewpoints as a researcher, as a teacher, as a consultant within the industry, and as a content creator, as you mentioned. You have to convey the same messages in totally different ways in order to reach these different audiences. And I think that's really served in getting buy-in when you're having these conversations and having what I would call as a psychologist, the cognitive flexibility to go back and forth about making your arguments in different ways, but to get the same result.
It seems like it's been effective. You're coming at this from a lot of angles, so
I try.
That's great.
Thanks.
If you found that interesting, there's more to this conversation. You can catch additional highlights and the full Safe Space episode here.